How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the set 15.3 patch rundown. Set 15, second patch of the set, and yeah, I'm trying to kind of streamline the thing I did last time, kind of like how Mortdog is doing it. You'll recognize the format if you've watched this video. Last time, I made a few technical errors, but we're gonna try to make it a bit smoother this time, and hopefully it's a good video. Hopefully you like and subscribe, and hopefully we get right into it. First of all, power-ups of weight 0 is now correctly hidden. There was a bug where some power-ups that was supposedly disabled kept showing up. Notably these two power-ups, a new power-up called max speed, which will grant attack speed on takedowns, and the start the combat with full mana power-up. These numbers 10 and 5 represent their weight, right? A power-up of weight 10 has double the odds of a power-up of weight 5 showing up. Another change coming to prismatic orbs. The one prismatic orb cash out that would give you 55 gold is replaced with 10 gold plus a radiant lucky item chest, which is a lucky item chest for a selection of 3 radiant items for a selected champion. Also, another change they're doing to 4-star champion rather, because they show up a bit more often this set, is that they'll have their base HP bonus removed. This is just because you have things like Prodigy that increase the amount that show up. You have War of the Weight, the gold version, War of the Weight prismatic version. So yeah, a few more 4-star champions showing up this set. You also have Twisted Fate, which can give you the 3-star crew unit if you already have a 3-star and you hit it twice and they merge, just making things a bit less common. You have the power-up. You have the final form power-up, which makes them go into a 4-cost on stage 5 as well. I forgot about that one. Another small change before we get into the big changes. There was kind of like a feature where when you popped an armory, you couldn't click right away to kind of avoid misclicks, right? But it had the unintended feature where you would pop your armory, click where you wanted, notably for Lee Sin. You pop your armory, you click on Duelist Lee Sin, and then nothing happens, and then you click on something else, and then you need to bench your Lee Sin and play it again. Anyway, they're reducing that, what they're calling a safety timer for armories, so that when you click fast and nothing happens and you try to do something else, you don't accidentally click on the second thing you clicked on, right? They're basically allowing you to play faster if you're feeling comfortable. Alright, moving on to the traits. Crystal Gambit 3 is getting a small increase to his gem per loss. Gems per loss went down, but they made it so you cash out every 3 rounds. There's now more flexibility when it comes to whether you want to go for 1 double down or 2 double down or even 3 double down. But overall, you got smaller cash outs this patch because of the base went down from like 20 in 4 rounds to 11 in 3 rounds. Now they're bringing it up to 13, and they're nerfing Crystal Gambit 7 even further because the damage amp on Crystal Gambit 7 is simply too powerful. The Mighty Mech HP scaling proportional to the amount of star you have on all your Mighty Mech trait units per stage is going down starting at stage 3. This is supposed to be in green. The 4th point is supposed to be in green. This is a buff. The core healing per damage of champions, so basically the omnivamp you get based on the damage dealt by your team, is going up from 10% to 12%. Lucador heal is getting pretty significantly nerfed. Lucador is probably the most powerful comp in the game if you don't count the broken units, like for example Akali has been really powerful and had needed to be hotfixed. Gangplank was very powerful and so got another patch of nerf after the set 15.2 patch. But apart from like the outliers who are clearly way too powerful units, Lucador was really powerful because you basically heal back to full and cleanse, and yeah, and it's too strong. They're also removing that cleanse on damage over time effects, meaning if you're applied by a burn, you no longer cleanse the burn and then heal back to full. Monster's Trainer is getting slightly buffed. There was a change last patch that made it so switching between each monsters reset their XP rather. It wasn't really a reset, but rather that each monster had its XP tracked individually. So playing something like a Rammus early to slam your tank items, or a Kog'Maw early because you got a Rage Blade, and finally pivot into the monster you wanted for your final comp, was no longer possible. You had to lock in your monster very early, and even when you played your monster on like stage 1-3 after the second or third PvE round. It was still very, very difficult to get the monster to level 30 before straight up dying, because a level sub 30 monster is relatively weak. So they're increasing the XP bonus per stage slightly, so hopefully you can like stabilize your board a bit sooner. The Star Guardian RE bonus, which was mana over time, is getting slightly buffed. And finally, the Wraith damage, which is proportional to the damage dealt by the Horde team, is getting buffed pretty significantly at the gold, right at the 6 piece. It's pretty nice having a big burst of damage split on the whole backline is very useful, especially if you play something like Jhin, because Jhin has no real good backline access. Jin's backline access is the Wraith proc damage. Jhin deals a lot of damage on the frontline tank, you shred him, you do whatever, and then a portion of the damage is split on the backline. But because it's split between so many units, it's still hard to kill the enemy carries while playing Wraith. So hopefully that makes it so Wraith can actually slam down a lot of damage on the tank, and then maybe with a Varus you pierce through, right? But earlier with just a Jhin and a Malzahar and a Kayle and maybe an Emblem, right? But and a Kayle and a Zac, you have just a 4 piece. It's enough damage to pierce through their backline. That's it for the traits. Let's move on to the units. I didn't put the Gangplank nor the Akali changes here. Those are changes that if you're aware, like up to date with TFT, you already saw those changes. But if I had to like mention them briefly, I'd say that like Gangplank and Akali both got their mana increased, so the buffs to their stats weren't enough. So now Gangplank casts every 5 auto attack and Akali casts every 4 auto attack. Those are the two main nerfs to these champions. Anyway, 1-star units, 1-cost units, sorry. The base shield for Naafiri is getting slightly lower for 1 or 2-star, and the ability damage for what's her name, Syndra, is getting pretty significantly lowered. Pretty significantly lowered, but it's not that significant actually. It's like a 5% decrease, but still enough for it to make a difference. She was definitely the most consistent 1-cost carry, so you know, it is what it is. Pretty small nerf actually. 2-cost units, Mundo HP gain per cast. This is the max health gain, is getting lowered. Pretty significant lowering of the HP gain. It's like a 17% nerf on the 3-star one. So yeah, Mundo and Lucador are both getting pretty significant nerfs. Gangplank is getting a buff here to his damage, notably because now he is pretty weak now that he needs 5 auto attack per cast. Although the gold chance is going down, meaning he is less good of a tempo unit, something you slam down, and the 2-star Gangplank early isn't as impactful as it once was. Jhin is getting like a slight, you could say, bug fix. It's simply that his 4th shot will now no longer fizzle out if he shoots at a target that dies, which was like, unlike other characters who only lose 1 auto attack, Jhin losing his 4th shot is basically losing half his damage over time until he gets the next 4th shot. So yeah, it was just unfun, right? It's never fun to have these things happen to you, to have like a 4th shot disappear because you got unlucky. So it's kind of just to make him a bit more consistent. Kobuko is getting, I don't know why that's gray, I'm sorry, it's supposed to be red. I put it gray because I'm sorry guys, but his base shield is getting lowered at 2 and 3-star for his mentor form. These are 3 nerfs to his mentor form. The HP slam ratio scaling off of his own health is going down for the main attack, and the shockwave going backwards is going down to 8% as well. Finally, Xayah is getting a bit more damage scaling off of her AD. When she casts, she makes it so she gains attack speed, and her next attack deals more damage proportional to her AD. The 3-cost, Caitlyn is getting a pretty significant nerf. You guys probably saw, if you played a lot, that Caitlyn plus Jace, getting them both to 3-star is very consistent because you can roll for them at level 7, and at Battle Academia at level 7 is very good, because when you're rolling for a Caitlyn 3-star and a J 3-star, you're likely to find either one Yuumi or one Leona, so getting Battle Academia 7 can be activated really easily. People also figured out good positioning to make it so Caitlyn always gets her first snipe on the back line by putting your tanks to the side, which kind of like opens up the front line of the opponent. All of these things together made so that Caitlyn plus Jace is really strong. We're gonna go over like Jace specific nerfs later, because he didn't get nerfs himself, his items got nerfed, but for Caitlyn specifically, they're lowering the damage of her cast as well as the damage of her bounce. Senna is getting a buff both to her AD scaling and AP scaling on her ability. And finally, Smolder is getting a small nerf to his ability to kind of like equalize him with Kog'Maw and the other guy. Okay, what's his name? Okay, it's not Skarner. It's Rammus. Rammus and Kog'Maw are getting both got small buffs last patch. Now Smolder is getting small nerfed. But because of like the XP changes, Smolder overall is going to be about the same, but he will cap out a bit lower than before. Yasuo is getting a buff to his base AD on his ability when he's not in his 4 mentor form. The AP scaling on his ability goes slightly down, but that doesn't really change anything. And finally, in his mentor 4 form, so when you have all 4 mentors activated, his slash will deal less damage. Moving on to the forecast, Jinx is getting an increase to her ability damage, which is honestly kind of surprising considering Jinx usually outshines even a Seraphine. A Jinx 2 usually doubles the damage of a Seraphine, so I'm not really sure about these changes. Another league notification, it's the same notification every time. Whatever. Anyway, I'm kind of surprised that Jinx is getting these buffs. I think like Jinx 2 is already very, very good. If you get something like Star Sailor on Jinx, it's also really nice because these big explosions that splash on the entire front line that deal maybe 5k damage each also heal your entire team for 1000 damage each. There's a little bit of a technical issue on Samira as well, but it is what it is. We'll go over it later. Karma is getting a slight nerf to her 1 and 2 star. The 3 star remains unchanged. It makes sense. Karma has incredibly high AP scaling, and with sorcerers, these can go into the crazy high numbers. Obviously, these are damage over time scaling. She throws out a disc, and the disc deals that amount of damage before disappearing. But these are still incredibly high numbers, so it makes sense for them to go down slightly because Karma is really strong. Both Right in his base and mentor form is getting a buff to his 1 and 2 star. Samira is getting a nerf to her 1 and 2 star, both with the bullet damage and the big cast Die Age. Sorry about that misclick as well. And additionally, there's a bug fix in there that Samira wasn't properly getting double the Omnivamp during her cast. She has written in the description that her cast is supposed to give her double the style points. Each style point provides 5% Omnivamp. At 4 style points, she goes into her S rank and does her League of Legends ultimate. So 4 style points times 2 gives 8 times 5% per gives 40% Omnivamp, but she was still stuck at 20% Omnivamp. So now going for something like whatever it's called, like Big Player, the one that gives you 35% damage amp but starts the game at 65% HP, is a lot better on someone like Samira because that 40% Omnivamp is applied correctly, and so you heal back the full really consistently without necessarily getting picked off. Finally, for the forecast, Yuumi is getting her true damage, which is her Battle Academia scaler, toned down from 32% to 30%, which isn't the biggest of deal, but considering its true damage, this 2% is like a real 2%, compared to like an AP 2%, which is then also reduced by MR. This 2% is like a bigger nerf than a 2% on magic damage, right? Because this goes through both durability and MR. Finally, for the 5 cost, Executioner Lee Sin is getting a slight damage increase to the primary target. Juggernaut Lee Sin will have 10 less max mana, but his initial cast will be the same. And the primary target damage for Juggernaut Lee Sin will also be dealing more damage. Seraphine's base scaler for her Power of Friendship damage is going up. This isn't AP damage, this is a multiplier based on all of her stats. So you guys know that Seraphine scales with every stat. So now it's 100%, 150% of her power and friendship value at 1 star and 225 at 2 star. There's no 3-star value because 3-star Seraphine does something special. And the same can be said for Juggernaut Lee Sin, where the 3-star Juggernaut Lee Sin does something special. That being, he pushes everyone off the board. And for Seraphine, that being, she converts the enemy into Star Guardian teammates. Finally, for the 5 cost, Yone is getting more attack speed per hit, and his every other attack that deals magic damage deals now more magic damage. That's for the units. Let's move on to the augments now. The aim for the top augment, which is the one that tries to place you against stronger opponents, will now give you a component after your first win, which means you get your first component earlier, and then 1 component after 3 win. Dazzling Display, which is the one that makes it so Sorcerer reduced damage dealt by enemy units. It's going down from 25% to 20%, which I'm not sure if it's a typo in-game or in here, but in-game, unless they changed it, I swear it said reduced damage by 25, not 25%. So I always thought it was a flat 25 damage reduction. That's why I always thought it was a weird dog, but you see it on stage 4-2 and you're like, well, at this point in the game, I'm getting hit by chunks of 400 damage, so reducing it by 20 doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I'm not sure which one is a typo, but I always thought it was base damage reduction, not percent damage reduction. Anyway, it's going down from 25 to 20. Deepening Shadow, which is the one that makes it so every time your Wraith's ability procs, your units gain AD and AP. They now gain 6 AP per instead of 5 AP per. Diamond Hands, which is the one that made it so you had to cash out on like 4-7 or something, and you could double down, and double down would just like lower your price, has been removed. It was clearly not balanced for the new cash out every 3 round system. It felt very weird with the new system. So I get that they removed it. I hope that they reintroduce it in the future with time to rebalance it. But yeah, it didn't make much sense to keep it after they changed it so that Crystal Gambit could choose to cash out every 3 rounds instead of every 4 rounds, because it kind of broke the balance of that augment. Game plan, this is supposed to be red, sorry. It's going to give 50 less health. To give him the chair, Mundo Augment is going to deal more HP per auto attack, like scaling with his HP, but it also means that he drains his HP faster. So I put it in green, but like he will also drain his HP faster. That's something to keep in mind. Hollowing Gale, which is the one that makes it so... I should move my mouse out of the way, by the way. Hollowing Gale is the one that whenever your unit spends 600 mana, you summon a tornado. Now you only need to spend 550 mana. Isekai Hero Augment, which is the one that spawns an Echo, no longer gives you a Hand of Justice as well. Next up, we have some changes to Hero Augment specific attack speed multiplier. Basically, they're lowering the base attack speed multiplier for all of the Hero Augments champ, meaning that building attack speed on them is worse, but to compensate for their now lower attack speed, they come with an increase of bonus attack speed. So they attack pretty much just as fast. For Garen, he will attack pretty much just as fast, but building Rageblade on him will be worse because it will give diminishing return. So that's it for Gangplank. That's it for Garen, I mean. 0.6 instead of 0.8 multiplier on his attack speed, but he starts with a 30% boost. Starfall Nico has an increase to her heal, and the same idea. 0.6 instead of 0.8, but Nico gets a 50% attack speed boost. Sunfire board duration goes from 12 seconds to 15 seconds. Tectonic Titan, which is the Malphite hero augment, goes from 0.8 to 0.55 and gets a 50% attack speed boost to compensate. So all changes to make it so building Rageblade on a champion that's already very powerful and is now a fighter, so he gets based Omnivamp, so you're not necessarily obligated to build something like a Bloodthirster or a Hand of Justice on them, is now not as good. It was very powerful to build a Rageblade on most carries, most assassins as well, because they now only get mana through their auto attacks. So having them auto attack faster means they get more mana, means they get more cast, means they get exponentially more value. Tiny Team, which is the one that makes it so if you have less units on the board than your opponents, your units get bonus stats. it gets increased to 200% because it's very hard. It's very hard to get it consistently. It's very hard to consistently fight against someone while you have less units in them. Finally, for the augments, the tournament favorite augment, which is the one that makes it so when you play soul fighters, you'll get threshold to get loot, have their threshold 4 to 7 increased, and numbers are there on screen. Quite a few item changes are coming as well. Let's go over them. Blue buff is getting buffed. Blue buff was the worst mana regen item simply because it did not provide any other value. Archangel provides AP. The one that provides Magic Shred provides Magic Shred. I forgot the name. Void Staff. Void Staff gives Magic Shred. Morello gives Burning. Not Spear of Sojin, but the Hextech Gunblade gives healing. They all give very good value. And blue buff only gave 15 AP and 15 AD. And not that much mana regen. It was always better to go for a Spear of Sojin than a blue buff. So now hopefully blue buff is a bit stronger. Gwinsu's Raid Blade's attack speed per second is going down from 7 to 6. Spear of Sojin, speaking of Spear of Sojin being a bit stronger than blue buff, is getting its AD lowered to match the one of blue buff. Radiant Adaptive Helm, more AP and AD, one at the back. Radiant Adaptive Helm, more MR and armor, one at the front. Radiant blue buff gives only 45 AD and AP as opposed to 60. It was kind of absurd that a Radiant blue buff gave 4 times the stat that of a blue buff. If you think about it, a Radiant is usually 2 times the staff, right? If you look like lower, we're going to talk about Radiant Edge of Night and Radiant Rage Blade. If you skip to Radiant Rage Blade right now, we can see that the attack speed per second is exactly doubled as the one of the normal Rage Blade. While for blue buff, the base stats were 4 times, which was very, very powerful, especially on champs that had hybrid scaling. Or, you know, they just auto attack a few times, something like a Rise. Getting that 60 bonus AD per auto attack was very, very good, so it's good that they nerf it slightly. Radiant Edge of Night is getting a new bonus, which is that it will heal the holder to full after the invulnerability ends, which is after the 60% damage threshold invulnerability triggers, you heal back to full. Although Radiant Edge of Night is getting less stats in his AD, AP, and attack speed. We talked briefly earlier about Radiant Gwinchu's. The base attack speed is going down, as well as the attack speed per second is going down to match the one of the normal Rage Blade. Radiant Infinity Edge is getting slightly less AD. Radiant Spear of Sojin, less AD to match with the new Sojin, and less AP to match, once again, with the current Sojin. Moving on to artifacts, a few artifact changes. Flicker Blade as well, getting attack speed down from 7 to 6 to match the one of both Rage Blade. I want to talk briefly about how all these attack speed items also nerf champs like Ashe. A very strong comp was playing Ashe with Duelist. Duelists were very, very powerful. A lot of attack speed items slash AD items, notably Infinity Edge or Spear of Sojin or Flicker Blades or whatever, all of these items that are very strong on Duelist are getting nerfed. So that's why we didn't see an Ashe nerf nor an Udyr nerf earlier. We're gonna go into the fruits later. The fruits are also gonna have changes that infect them. Mana Zain no longer banks mana and grants all of it after the second cast. It was a really weird interaction where you would see you shoot, you cast, your mana regen goes up, you cast the second time, and then you immediately cast the third time, and then the fourth time, and then the fifth time. Basically, you would just stack it up like in the background, which would break mana lock. And if your mana was like, if your max mana was 60 but your cast had a long channel, you would go all the way up to 180 mana and then cast channel, start attacking, wait, you're at 120 mana out of 60, so you cast channel, start attacking, wait, but you're 60 out of 60, so you channel the third time. Now it will simply pause the mana regen and then start again when you're not mana locked, so it will feel more like how it's supposed to feel. Seeker's Arm Guard, which is the one that gives armor, MR, and AP whenever you get a takedown, will provide more base AP. Silvermere Dawn will no longer give mana proportional to damage taken. It was extremely powerful simply because there was one specific fruit interaction, specific like buff interaction with like the one that made, I believe it's called Precision, right? The one that also caps your attack speed. But Silvermere Dawn on frontline units was very, very powerful because it made them like effectively play how they would play in set 14 and earlier, where you would pretty much use all frontline unit as a drain tank, where taking damage on them meant you gained more mana, meaning you also cast more often and got more value. Silver Mirror Dawn allowed you to play that kind of style on units like Jace, where you simply place a Jace in the front, give him a Silver Mirror Dawn, a bit of Omnivamp, he takes 1 million damage, cast, stuns everyone, gains a million health because he has Omnivamp, and then just attacks very slowly. But because he gains mana with damage taken, that attacking very slowly meant nothing. So I'm glad that they do that. I'm glad that Silver Mirror Dawn is now actually an item where you have to sacrifice attack speed for it, because it was way too powerful. To compensate for that nerf, however, they're slightly increasing the resistances from 50 armor and MR to 60. Moving on to the power-ups. Adaptive Skin, slight buff, this is the one that you get a bit more armor and MR. Artistic KO, which is the Jhin exclusive augment, is getting a slight nerf to kind of compensate for the Wraith buffs. Best defense, you're gonna get a slightly bigger shield. Bludgeoner is gonna go through 40% of your opponent's armor as opposed to 35. Caretaker's Shield is going to provide 135% AP shield as opposed to 120. Colossal 1 and 2 is getting both nerfed for their health. Only Colossal 2 is getting nerfed for its damage amp. Essence Share, which is the one that you share mana, will now share 35% of mana. Efficient only reduces the mana cost of your spell by 15 as opposed to 20. Fairy Tail will now scale with stages better. It is no longer offered on Samira, that's not really a nerf. Fairy Tail Samira wasn't the best. Fan service has its weight increased, which is good for hitting fan service too. And additionally, if you have a fan service, your other unit, whether you're playing Xayah or Rakan, the other unit will always be offered fan service. Hattrick has its base AP and AD removed. The Kahuna fires. It will no longer fire after the attack hits, but rather fire when you shoot. This is to make it so if your attack kills a target, you won't shoot on that dead target. You will shoot both projectiles at the same time, so that they hopefully hit at the same time. Icebender, which is the Rise hero augment, will deal more splash damage, so that's damage to secondary targets. Mech Pilot will share more HP from the units you're putting in the mech, which will make it so if you put in a backline unit at like a 2-star camera, if you ever want to do that for some reason, will get more value because those 4 costs have more health. And additionally, if you want to put a tank in the mech, putting tank item on that tank now becomes kind of relevant. It was kind of a weird game where you wanted like those items, like items that give Sunder, items that give Burn, or give Shred, or give whatever, or give mana, right? You wanted these items on whoever wasn't going in the mech because, well, they're in the mech, they're not gaining mana, they're not doing anything, they're not casting, especially for something like a Jarvan. But now with a higher HP share, it's more like value to put someone with item in the mech, because that mech gets the value, and then that units gets bits that pooped out, and then when they get pooped out, they're full health, and then they can get value from their items as well. Max Arcana base AP, which is just when you pick up Max Arcana, you will have 22 AP as opposed to 20. Max Speed, which is the new augment that was weight 0, so you never saw it, will now give 10% as opposed to 8, but like that's kind of fake, like it wasn't supposed to exist, so it's just gonna give 10%. It will also give 1.5% AP, 1.5% attack speed per 3 kill participation. Max Vitality will give 40 per combat and 12 per 10 seconds survived, as opposed to 35 and 10. Next screen of power up, I believe this is the end before we move to the very small changes. This is the end of the power up. We went through half of them. The Gwen exclusive power up, Needlework, is getting its damage slightly reduced. Not done yet. Damage slightly reduced as well. Ordinary, which is when you have a unit that has no active trait, is getting its health increased for the 3 and 4 stars, as well as the attack speed increased all across the board. Over 9000 is now less common, as well as not being able to trigger on PvE rounds. I'm not sure if they say it right here, but yeah, mana regen is less common on over 9000, that's what it is. Precision now makes it so, this is the augment I was talking about when I was talking about to the changes to Silvermere. The bonus mana per attack is now 5 as opposed to 10. 10 was really, really big, considering you weren't getting that much like negative depending on who you build it on. If you build it on like a Caitlyn, precision on a Caitlyn, you're not losing that much attack speed. So 10 bonus mana per attack on a marksman that already has mana regen, and you build a Sojin, you now get like 22 per attack. It was kind of absurd. Also, they mentioned it here, no longer overrides Silver Dawn's 1.5 attack speed. Pursuit gives more AP. This is Lucian's exclusive augment. Resistant, which is the one that makes it so previously you took 30 less flat damage from all instances of damage, is now reduced to only 25%. 25 I mean base damage reduction from all instances of damage. It was a really strong augment. This is like a 16% nerf. A 30 base damage reduction is really good, especially on units that you build durability on. It's very strong against damage over time. It's really strong against high attack speed. It's really strong early where units don't deal that much damage. It was a really good augment, and you kind of kept it the whole game because it was just so much value. Robo Ranger is getting a much higher stat share when it comes to the stats that the champion gets. Round 2, which is the one that spawns a target dummy with your HP and the units you're carrying, will have significantly less HP because when you build something like a Warmog on it, it's very hard to go through, especially early. Shadow Clone is getting nerfed once again. Now the clones only have 50% HP, and the clone deals now 22% damage of the original champion as opposed to 25%, which is effectively a minus 78% damage up. Singularity is going to give more health per units that die. Socialite is going to mark hexes for 5 stages, or 5 rounds, sorry, as opposed to 3, but to compensate, the health is going to be reduced from 200 to 150. This is supposed to be red, sorry. Spiky Shell is going to give more stats depending on the stage. You'll be able to like cap it out earlier. Stand United is going to give a slightly higher shield, as well as more MR per cast. The cadence at which Super Geniuses proc, which is the one that makes it so your mana regen provides you AP every 2 seconds, scaling with your mana regen. Well, before it was every 1.5 seconds, now it's every 2 seconds, and because it's kind of poor synergy with units early that don't have 3 good mana regen items, it will no longer show up on stage 2. So yeah, when you got it before, you kind of always skipped it because you don't have mana regen, you don't have your prodigy set up, you don't have maybe an augment that provides even more mana regen or whatever, and you're definitely like not locked into going for mana regen either. It didn't make sense, right? You'd rather have something else on stage 2, so it no longer shows up on stage 2. Unstoppable is getting its bonus health reduced from 300 to 150. It's probably still going to be very strong, but getting Unstoppable on stage 2, that 300 HP increase meant like effectively like a 40% health increase on the champion. Whereas if you went for like standalone, you would always get less value because standalone on a 1 or 2 star 1 cost is a lot less value than a fat 300 health, especially considering positioning has to be very rough. You get all the units shooting that one tank, and that doesn't necessarily has all 3 items. And Unstoppable also provides this stun, which is really high value. Weight is going to provide slightly less durability after you take off all 5 of your weights. Moving on to a bit more smaller changes, but the one for Mighty Mech are pretty big. This is changes to the prismatic traits. So let's start with the right. Because these are slightly easier to see. Star Guardian is having its mana threshold to activate the prismatic trait lowered from 20k to 18.5k, and Battle Academia is going to need only 160 items instead of 175. And finally, Mighty Mech is getting a pretty significant rework to how it shows up. Now, when you see the first augment, which will be I'll Be the Leg, you are guaranteed to be offered the rest of them. The first implication behind this is that when you see I'll Be the Legs, no matter what happens, you know the next augment will be gold. And you also know that the third augment will be either gold or prismatic. So that's a pretty nice change. It will also mean that it will show up less often, but it will also mean that when you see I'll Be the Legs, there won't be like that kind of like edging that happens when you see I'll Be the Legs and you're super excited. Let's go, I'm gonna finally be able to activate the prismatic Mighty Mech, and then the next augment is silver. So you just kind of took it for nothing. That being said, because now getting the first augment is no longer something you do on the road to possibly going for Mighty Mech Prismatic, all 3 of the augments are getting slightly nerfed. Before, getting I'll Be the Head was kind of like the final stepping stone that could allow you to push to level 10, right? If you looked at the stat for I'll Be the Head, it provided 800 HP for the mech as well as 25% damage and for the mech. Simply having 3 gold augments, I'll Be the legs, arms and head, was way enough to get you to up to level 10, because you really did not need that much of a stronger board. You got maybe Yom 2, you got maybe Jarvan 2 and Karma 2, and then you'd level up to 10 because your mech was that much stronger than everyone else. So now, I'll Be the leg provides less resist, I'll Be the arm provides less attack speed, no longer uses an out gangplank. The gold version of I'll Be the Head has its health reduced, and the prismatic version of I'll Be the Head has its health reduced and damage amp reduced, but to compensate, it will give you a Yon. So if you're like in a super high gold game, maybe you're in a crab rave game, and you find that 3rd augment, you now no longer even need to roll for that Yon, it's now the straight race to level 10, but you won't stabilize as easily as before by simply playing all 3 augments together. You'll have to play a strong board if you want to push to level 10. Finally, they're adjusting a bit of the 3-star units. On the left are Ari and Viego, which are the 3-star 3-cost units. Ari is getting a slight damage increase, and Viego is getting a slight damage increase on all 3 of his combos. And on the right, these are just pretty significant buffs to all the 3-star 4-costs, so that they kind of like solo carry a bit easier. But you know, they still lose to 3-star 5-costs, they still lose to maybe a prismatic trait, but they're stronger on their own, so that if you hit them but you don't maybe have the best in slot item for them, they can still carry. They can still do their thing. And that's it. That's it for the changes. There's also bug fixes. If you want to go maybe check the bug fixes, I'll link the full patch notes in the description, but we went over everything. So thank you for watching, everyone. Yeah, it's always fun to do those. Even though I'm kind of late on this one. Have fun with the patch. I don't know if it's out. I don't know if it releases later today. I don't know if it released yesterday evening. But anyway, have fun with the patch. Have fun with TFT. Thanks for watching if you made it to the end. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks if I decide to keep doing these. Bye bye.